Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PLAYERSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show, and thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. While you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, it helps us out so much. I know I say it every week, but it does not become less important on a weekly basis. And again, thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You are a legend to us. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson, and back with me, in person, Mr. Lewis Camley. How is it going, Lewis?
It's going great, Mark. Yeah, I'm out of lockdown cupboard. Nice to be back here at the old table where we make the magic happen.
At the old table. Yes, we are back together again, being very responsible, keeping 2 meters apart, keeping that social distancing, and Lewis has brought hand sanitizer with him. Very proud of him for that. So yeah, back together. This is exciting. This is good. I like this.
It's good. It's nice to not be stuck in that tiny little room anymore, I've got to say. So, Mark, what have you been playing?
Well, Lewis, I have actually taken a bit of a break from gaming this week because I had Final Fantasy VII Remake right into Resident Evil 3, right into The Last of Us Part 2, which was quite a lot. I've taken a little bit of a break. I did start playing Bastion, our play-along game of this month, and if anyone wants to join us, you still have plenty of time to do that. But apart from that, just chilling, taking it easy, and getting ready for Ghost of Tsushima, quite frankly.
Nice one.
What have you been playing?
Well, having finished The Last of Us Part 2, I went back to my playthrough of Disco Elysium, which I have now completed. Rolled credits on Disco Elysium.
Nice one, man.
It's about 40 hours through, I think, when we completed it. As I've said before, a really stunning narrative game, unlike any piece of writing in a video game I've ever come across. Like, I think comfortably, by far, the most funny game I've ever played.
Really?
Genuine, not funny in the way that video games can be funny, where they'll crack a joke or it'll do a little callback or there'll be an Easter egg or whatever. Funny, like, if it was written down or someone was performing it would be funny still, you know.
Right, like if it were being performed on a stage.
Exactly,
for example,
it's just good funny writing. It's not good video game funny writing, if you know what I mean. It's just the stuff that is happening, and particularly when you've got a list of options for what you can make your character say, and there'll be one of them say that is just hysterically stupid. If you imagine the character who is a detective investigating a murder, it's just absurd to think of that character saying that thing, and so invariably that's the one you pick. Obviously, there's a lot of like humiliating the character in that game, which is so unusual. I loved it from start to finish. It kind of rattles through its ending quite quickly, so it's a big, expansive RPG. There's obviously a hell of a lot of stuff you can do. There's probably loads of things that I never even saw, although I feel like we did cover most of the ground in the game, but it does kind of funnel you through to the end, which I guess it has to do to wrap up the core plotline. Other than that, it was near flawless, I thought. Not a perfect game at all, but just a perfectly fun, incredibly deep RPG experience, which was exactly what I was looking for from it. So you still think you'll get around to playing it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm basically just waiting for the console release. Yeah. Hopefully a Switch release. Fingers crossed for a Switch release. Yeah. That would be awesome. Well, assuming I'm able to go outside anytime soon and play my Switch on the go. But yeah, I definitely will get around to playing it. I mean, it was obviously lauded hugely last year at all the Game Awards and whatever. And before that, even, it caught my eye. So yeah, definitely going to get around to it at some point. But hopefully waiting for that console release. All right then, Lewis. I think it's time for the news. Alright, news item number 1. The Ubisoft Forward has happened, Lewis. This is Ubisoft's big presentation that would have been E3 basically for them. But before that, Ubisoft have had a bit of a week, or a bit of a few weeks, we will say, and they have been very much the centre of multiple sexual assault allegations and levelled at very high-level employees at the company as well. So subsequently, Chief Creative Officer Serge Haskell, Global Head of HR Cecile Cornette, Jans Moller, the Managing Director of Ubisoft's Canadian studios, have all departed the company, along with Vice President Maxime Belland, who left the company, I think it was the week before. So a lot of change happening at Ubisoft right now, and CEO Yves Guillemot will now oversee a complete overhaul in the way in which the creative teams collaborate. I don't really know what that means, but they need a serious overhaul if that many high-level employees have had sexual assault allegations levelled at them and are serious enough to the point where they have to leave their job. That is madness that has happened. Despite these allegations being increasingly prominent over the last few weeks, Ubisoft made this statement on Twitter before the Ubisoft Forward presentation.
Ubisoft Forward comes during a time of big internal change. Because all the content has been pre-recorded, we wanted to recognise that the issues we're currently dealing with won't be addressed directly in the show. We still have significant work to do and are committed to this process. We will provide more updates soon.
So basically this statement was saying that in the Ubisoft Forward, they were not going to be addressing these sexual assault allegations or the fact that several high members of their company had to leave the company because of sexual assault allegations. Now, that quite frankly is total fucking bullshit as far as I'm concerned. They could easily have cut something in. A company the size of Ubisoft couldn't have cut that in over a week. They couldn't have done that in a day. They could have probably done that in an hour and a half.
Put up a text statement like they did on Twitter. Even that at the start of it would have been better than just completely ignoring it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's quite frankly is a fucking cowardly move, and I think that is really, really poor form from Ubisoft. I think that it's great that Ubisoft have now got these people out of their company, and that is superb. Yeah. We do not need these people in video games, and quite frankly, we don't need them anywhere. So that was a good response, but this was pretty fucking poor as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, Lewis, let's talk about some video games, will we? So the presentation started by showing off Watch Dogs Legion. Firstly, they showed a weirdly political video, even for Ubisoft. They kind of
flirt with that stuff a lot.
Dance around politics. And they described it as a short movie / trailer. But then after that, we got to see a good bit of gameplay. We saw gameplay from Watch Dogs Legion before. Again, it looks pretty dynamic. The way that you can tackle levels in particular is quite interesting. The way that you can go about it and the way that you can, of course, recruit any NPC in the game, I think, is a really interesting way to create any sort of game. And if it kind of pans out the way that they say that it will,
they're sticking by that line.
Then it's really impressive. And I know for a fact that the press have now got their hands on Watch Dogs Legion. I don't even know how long the preview is, maybe a few hours or something like that.
Like 3 or 4 hours, yeah.
And the response has been positive, I've got to say. The response has definitely been positive from the media. However, the big news from this with regards to Watch Dogs Legion is that it now has a release date again. Of course, it was supposed to be out in March, I believe.
That's right, yeah.
And it was subsequently delayed indefinitely. But we now have a release date of October the 29th. Phil Spencer also made an appearance within the presentation to say that Watch Dogs Legion would also be supported with smart delivery as well, which is great, which means it will almost certainly be a free upgrade as well on the PS5, you would have thought. So that's good as well, that's good to know. What were your thoughts on it, Liz?
I still think the gameplay looks really fascinating. Something about the sections that they showed off reminded me of Hitman, like just the way, loads of different ways you can approach
I can see that, definitely.
I almost wonder if it's going to play like Hitman does, as almost like discrete levels where you would go in. I'm assuming that there's a proper open world because they're saying that's where you recruit the NPCs in, right?
Yeah,
but we've not really seen what happens when you just wander around the open world and what kind of stuff happens there. Everything that they've shown has been, trying to break into a place, or, there's a whole section in that gameplay trailer about fighting drones and stuff like that. So there's a hell of a lot in this game. That part of it, I think, looks brilliant. I think the vibe of it still, I suspect I'm going to play this and find it a bit annoying tonally and kind of in the message that it's going for, but I think it looks like really good fun to play, or certainly it's just interesting enough as an idea, as a mechanic at the heart of it, that I think it's worth giving it a shot, basically.
Yeah, I think I feel basically the same. I think that the idea behind this game is really, really cool. I like that they're sort of reinventing what Watch Dogs is a little bit as well, because the first game was really a swing and a miss. The second game was better, but again, a lot of people didn't really respond great to that either. So I think that it's a good franchise in concept, but I think that it's lacked execution. So if they can pull this off, then that'll be really, really great for this game. Next off, they showed off Valhalla, which is coming to iOS and Android on August the 6th. The most interesting part about this announcement is that you had customizable controls on your phone where you could change where you had to press basically to do actions within the game. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I don't know if that's been in mobile games before. I'm not very clued up in mobile games, but that's a fantastic idea because some of the positions of controllers in mobile games are absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
I really thought that was a great touch.
And it looked as well like you could make it suit your style of play as well. Like you could make certain buttons bigger if that's the one that you want to make sure you hit.
It's a great accessibility feature as well.
Definitely,
totally. Yeah. Absolutely great. And it will also support crossplay on all platforms as well. Then they showed off another couple of mobile games, this being Might and Magic Era of Chaos and Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which was the only appearance of Sam Fisher in this presentation. Spoiler alert, I suppose. After that, there was actually a cool little Rainbow Six Siege thank you video to all the fans and whatever, and how that game exploded and became the sensation that it was, which I just thought was quite cool. Next up was Hyperscape. They showed off a little trailer, and then after that they were into a bit of gameplay as well. They also went into the kind of character designs a little bit. But again, the most important part about this announcement was that it is being released on PC in open beta as of right now. As a primarily console player, however, it was a little disappointing not to hear any news about a console release or a console beta or it coming to console at all, because I would actually quite like to try this out. I've watched several videos on it now. It looks interesting. It looks interesting enough for me to try out, particularly for free. I mean, why not? You know what I mean? And again, I did respond quite well to to Apex Legends. Like, I did quite enjoy that. I did quite enjoy Call of Duty Warzone, although I only played it very, very briefly, to be completely honest. So, I mean, I would definitely be up for giving it a go, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting that they didn't say anything about console. I suppose the tie-in with Twitch, which seems to be at the heart of kind of some of the games,
of course.
Because it doesn't have a lot that made it stand out to me as being massively different from Apex Legends, but that...
It's very stripped back.
Yeah, that Twitch integration, which seemed to mean that people watching could vote on stuff every so often that would change how the maps work. So I think what they showed was anti-gravity switching on, or they mentioned infinite ammo at one point. So just like small gameplay modifiers which the players have to kind of live react to, which I think is a really cool thing. I hope it's not spammable and not that people can't just abuse it and make it a horror to play, but it's a nice idea.
I always just think of someone like a huge Twitch streamer comes along with an audience that is gigantic that can just command his audience to change the map in the ways that would benefit him the most. I'm just thinking, well, is that great? You know what I mean? But it's a good idea and concept, and it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out anyway. Next up was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This, of course, being the new Assassin's Creed game focusing around a Viking invasion of England. However, they did spend quite a lot of time at the beginning trying to convince us that Vikings weren't bad guys, while almost immediately after that showing us a raid on a village. But what they were saying was that they had kind of revamped the combat system to be more Viking, quotes, e.g. make it more brutal and intense. And then they got on to finally some gameplay, or official gameplay, we will say, because of course there was a huge leak the other week there of Assassin's Creed Valhalla gameplay. The first thing that I noticed is that you seem to be kicking about with a crew while you're on raids and pillaging and doing your Viking business. I'm not sure if that's going to be all of the time as well, because they did seem to show a lot of gameplay of just you yourself, so I don't know if that's raid specific, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. However, the combat itself does look more brutal, certainly, and intense and dynamic, and more, I mean, eye roll emoji, Souls-like.
Yeah.
I mean, it does a bit though, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
They'd also introduced hunting and fishing mechanics to replenish your health. Again, I hope that that's not overly a burden on you, do you know what I mean? I hope that that's just something that you can do as well as get your health back in other ways, I suppose. The map as well, they showed off the map, which seems gigantic. The map is basically the entirety of England and Wales, for those of you in the UK. But honestly, I thought it looked really good. It was one of the best looking Assassin's Creeds for a while. I thought the last one looked pretty good as well, but that one even better for me, I would say. Much more my vibe, a lot less kind of shiny and Greek gods, you know what I mean? A lot more down in the dirt Vikings. I like that better.
Yeah, what does that say about you? Yeah, I thought it looked really interesting. Assassin's Creed has a lot of work to do, I think, to get me back on board, and this might be the one that would do that, because I'm exactly the same as you. Like, we both tried Origins and bounced off it pretty hard.
Yeah, we did.
I started Odyssey with no real intention of giving it a lot of time, I will admit, but I didn't really get too stuck into it. Aspects of this I think look really fun. That whole section that they showed of Ivor leaping off the long ship and the whole squad of Vikings storming up a beachfront, attacking a village, and the fact that you could see NPCs brawling all around you, and there was the people setting light to roofs and all that kind of thing. Like, that's quite different. I don't feel like we've had that kind of thing in Assassin's Creed before.
No, because you're like the bad guy, right?
Yeah, because you're storming, you're invading. And so I hope that if they deal with all of that stuff sensitively as well, like that they don't just be like English bad and that's the end of it, you know, because there should be nuance in these characters and in this story. But yeah, what they've shown so far I think is interesting. It's more Assassin's Creed. It's maybe quite different from some of the previous Assassin's Creeds, but
certainly looks it in tone anyway.
Definitely,
certainly. And also that has it now got a release date of November the 17th. Alright, and last up, Lewis, was Far Cry 6. Now, this was supposed to be the big reveal at the end, obviously, but unfortunately this had leaked many times over by the time it got to the actual presentation. However, in terms of like a nice cinematic trailer, which is all it was, being acted by Giancarlo Esposito, who was Gus Fring in Breaking Bad and was also in The Mandalorian, I believe. I've not actually watched it. And honestly, it looked pretty cool. Again, it was quite political. Well, it was very political,
definitely,
actually. But I always think this about Far Cry games. I always look at trailers for Far Cry games and go, do you know what? That actually looks really good. And then when it releases, I inevitably lose interest and don't play them. So I would love for this to be the Far Cry game that I played. You know what I mean? I definitely would. I think getting him on as an actor to play in it as well is like a fantastic choice. He is brilliant. And then amazingly, we also got a release date for this of February the 18th, 2021. And Lewis, I will buy you a copy if they hit that date. Because I think there is almost zero chance of that, quite frankly. What did you think of this?
Much the same, like, it was a great cinematic trailer. It's hard to kind of draw too much from what the game's going to be like from that. If it's just more Far Cry, then I'm probably in the same boat as you, because I've not really ever given them much of a chance, to be totally honest. Never mind getting stuck into them.
I think the problem was that we missed Far Cry 3, which was the massive hook for a lot of people,
totally.
You know. So
I've got Far Cry 4 and played it for about half an hour or something. It came with my PS4, and with all the discourse around Far Cry 5 and how it was teasing that it was going to be a political game, but they were quite keen to deny that it was a political game. This trailer,
it's not even that. Is that you're going down these lines of politics? Do you know what I mean? So a lot of the stuff to do with Far Cry 5 was to do with radical Christianity in America, basically. I mean, that was what they were implying that the game was, and then they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then that, to me, is then just using the politics of that situation to market your game, which is a really fucking shitty thing to do, I think, if you're not going to make a statement about it.
Yeah, Ubisoft have got previous with this. Like, there was some stuff in the Watch Dogs Legion trailer as well that I thought was a bit uncomfortable. And it's the same here. Like, I'm not judging this game in advance at all, because if they handle this stuff well, and if they actually lean into it and make it a political game with a kind of political point to make, then that could be really interesting. But I worry that they won't, because they tend not to. And so we'll see how it plays out. I would just love to see them kind of do something a bit new with Far Cry. Like, it's been ticking along, particularly with those kind of like half installments that they do, like Primal, those kind of smaller games. New Dawn, yeah, exactly. Like, we've had a lot of Far Cry, you know, we've had a lot of Far Cry, so it's time to change it up a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of the politics, I know a lot of people are going, oh, politics shouldn't be in video games and blah, 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 but if you're not going to put politics in video games, don't put politics in video games. There's no requirement to have politics in video games. But if you are going to play with political issues in video games, then say something about it. Don't just use that to push your game in a certain direction. That's just bullshit. That's doing nothing for anyone. Overall, presentation, pretty underwhelming for me, honestly.
Yeah.
No Rainbow Six Quarantine, which I really thought we were going to see. No Gods and Monsters, which I hoped we were going to see. No Beyond Good and Evil 2. No Skull and Bones, although there has been news of that come out after the presentation, that the Skull and Bones game is being rebooted in some capacity, which is interesting and almost a definite confirmation that that game has been struggling badly for a long period of time. And no Splinter Cell either, which I wasn't really expecting to see, but the more time goes past where they refuse to do anything with that franchise, to me, just seems more and more stupid. It's becoming their next Prince of Persia, do you know what I mean?
Totally,
which is just ridiculous that they've not done anything with that franchise for such a long period of time, when there has to be a demand for that. If they released a new Sam Fisher game, a new Splinter Cell game tomorrow, the internet would go berserk. And all they need to do is have a trailer with those goggles just turning on and going bzzz, and making the noise, and we would lose our minds. Do you know what I mean? To me, it's crazy. It's crazy that they've not done anything with that franchise. So again, pretty disappointing not to see any of those. But they did mention that there would be a second Ubisoft Forward later in the year. So hopefully by that time, we're getting to see their next gen stuff, and hopefully a lot of the games that we've just mentioned now. Alright, and news item number 2. Devolver Digital, Lewis, also had their Devolver Digital Direct, and good lordy lord, Lewis, it was absolutely fucking wild. I love Devolver Digital. I absolutely love them. It was the craziest, most Devolver Digital presentation I've ever seen. It was just superb, and I really, really, really encourage anyone to go and watch it. We will have links in the show notes over at PlayersToo.com, as always. However, on to the games. The first game that they showed was Shadow Warriors 3, which looked absolutely mad, I thought, and it's coming out in 2021. That one kind of caught your eye, didn't it?
Yeah, I just thought it looked visually really incredible for, you know, Devolver usually publish quite small indie games, and this just, visually, the style of it is really impressive. Looks kind of like Doom, sort of...
Samurai Doom?
Yeah, exactly, Samurai Doom, exactly. I don't know if I'll ever get around to playing it, but I was quite impressed by it, basically.
Yeah, I noticed that, so this wasn't an announcement of this game. I know that this game had been announced prior, and when it was announced, I noticed a lot of people were really up for it, and it wasn't a franchise that I'd ever heard of before. Either, yeah. I'd never heard of it at all, but I must admit it kind of caught my eye a little bit as well, definitely. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it plays when it comes out, I suppose. Next up was Fall Guys, and Shuhei Yoshida was on, which was awesome because Shuhei is amazing. This again looked absolutely mad. And it seems to me a massive online multiplayer game where you compete against 60 other players in tasks, and you kind of whittle yourselves down to a winner.
Yeah.
Is that what the game is?
It just looks like a crazy sort of Saturday night game show, or like Takeshi's Castle, but made with little tiny kind of human fall flat characters. It's crazy. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'd never thought of it like that, but that is sort of true, yeah. And that's coming to PS4 and Steam on August the 4th. Next up was Carry On, and Phil Spencer was on. They certainly got a good crew for this, by the way. This is the sort of reverse horror game that sees you play as the monster, and this is coming out on Steam, Xbox and Switch. Again, not a huge amount more information on the game. If you've not seen it, it does look quite cool. It's not doing a lot for me, honestly, but I know that you quite liked it.
Yeah, it just reminds me a little bit of the gameplay from like Katana Zero, like small puzzle rooms where you have to use your abilities to get through and deal with it. Yeah, it's been floating around for ages. You've probably seen it already. But yeah, coming out in July 23rd, I think worth a look.
Then after that, Jeff Keighley was on in a weird sort of cameo. Then Bennett Foddy was on, who's the guy who made Over the Top, which was a huge game on Steam for a while, big with speedrunners and stuff like that as well. Then a couple of ex-Ubisoft employees that have created a new studio called Beans were on to announce their new studio. Then Sonic Fox was on to announce a fake game, all of which was very strange and very Devolver Digital, and it was all great. It was all absolutely great. And if none of that makes any sense to you, you need to go and watch the presentation.
You do basically have to watch it. It's got a narrative and everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. Honestly, it's superb. Absolutely superb presentation. After that was a game called Olija, which was a samurai action platformer, which again looked absolutely mad. I don't know if you can see a theme developing here. And that's coming to Switch and Steam. I actually thought that this was probably the highlight of the presentation for me. Yeah. Well, one, it was a game that I hadn't seen before. Mm-hmm. And two, I quite like action platformers like that. It definitely had puzzling elements in it as well, and the way that you use your weapon seemed quite cool. It was sort of a magical spear that you had.
Yeah, like a harpoon type thing.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. It was definitely something to keep your eye on. Again, a lot of indie games, they can swing either way when they come out, but it's definitely something to keep your eye on, I'd say.
There is a demo for that out now as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I might get on that as well. After that was Serious Sam 4, and honestly, it looks like more Serious Sam. I don't really know what else to say about it. It looks like Doom Light. And again, it looks absolutely fucking mad. It's coming out in August on Steam, Stadia, PS4 and Xbox. And then they finished the presentation with Devolver Land Expo, the game, which is a video game created to market Devolver Digital games and mock expos, which of course is fucking mad and is just so perfectly Devolver Digital. Yeah. It was great. I really loved this presentation. It made me smile almost from start to finish. Yeah. It's great. I absolutely love them. I love these guys so much. They're probably my favourite publisher in the world by a huge distance.
They're definitely the best at this kind of thing. Like, it was such a good presentation.
Yeah, it was so perfectly what it had to be. You know what I mean? It was the humour, everything landed. It was done really, really well. Like, really high production.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good acting and stuff as well. Yeah,
surprisingly good acting. Yeah, it was really good, really great. And I really would encourage anyone to go and watch it. We've got links in the show notes over at PlayersToo.com. Alright, news item number 3. GamesIndustry.biz done a whole piece on Xbox that included interviews with Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, and some of the other kind of studio heads, particularly some of the new ones that they bought. The article sort of mainly focused on Xbox insistence that studios continue to support the current generation hardware with new games, basically, and whether or not that was going to hold the Series X back in terms of what games could be developed for it, basically. Because as the article says, Xbox seem a lot less bothered about whether studios can fully take advantage of the new hardware and much more interested in making their games as accessible as possible, to as many people as physically possible. There was also some interesting points made about exclusives, which I also found fascinating. The article is actually quite long, but I would super encourage anyone to go and read it. Again, links in the show notes over at PlayersToo.com, but we will be focusing basically on 2 quotes, which are both quite lengthy and both from Phil Spencer. So the first quote focuses on, as we were just saying, the kind of development of Xbox Series X games, even though they still have to be on the Xbox One as well.
Frankly, held back is a meme that gets created by people who are too caught up in device competition. I just look at Windows. It's almost certain if the developer is building a Windows version of their game, then the most powerful and highest fidelity version is the PC version. You can even see that with some of our first-party console games going to PC, even from our competitors, that the richest version is the PC version. Yet the PC ecosystem is the most diverse when it comes to hardware when you think about the CPUs and GPUs from years ago that are there. Yes, every developer is going to find a line and say that this is the hardware that I'm going to support, but the diversity of hardware choice in PC has not held back the highest fidelity PC games on the market. The highest fidelity PC games rival anything that anybody has ever seen in video games. So this idea that developers don't know how to build games or game engines or ecosystems that work across a set of hardware, there's a proof point in PC that shows that's not the case. That said, we're shipping Xbox Series X this year. I'm playing it every day at home, and it is different to playing on an Xbox One X. We should applaud the work that is going on with the SSD and the work that is going on with audio to pick some of the areas that Jim Ryan and Mark Cerny and the stuff that PlayStation is focused on. We should applaud load times and fidelity of scenes and frame rate and input latency and all of these things that we focused on with the next generation. But that should not exclude people from being able to play. That's our point. How do we create an ecosystem where if you want to play an Xbox game, we're going to give you a way to go play it?
quite a long one there, but I think it's quite important. So Phil Spencer basically does a lot to convince us that this is going to work similarly to the PC space, in that games will be developed, they will be able to work on both systems, the Xbox One, the current generation, and the Series X, and it won't be a problem. And I've got to say, I think that is true. I think that it will work like the PC space. However, I don't think that the PC space exists in the terms that he is describing. Firstly, to say that the most powerful, the most high-fidelity version of games is on PC is obviously unquestionable. That is undoubtedly true. However, Phil Spencer also says that the hardware choice in PC has not held back the highest fidelity PC games on the market. That might very well be true in terms of fidelity, in terms of graphics.
Yeah.
Because the better gaming PC that you have, the better the game is going to look. I mean, end of story. End of story. However, that is not true for game design. That is not true for utilising the hardware as best that it can be utilised. And those PCs, those absolutely super, super high-end PCs, are absolutely being held back by games having to support lesser systems, not least of which consoles. Arguably, I very easily see an argument where the mere existence of the console space holds back high-end PCs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Phil Spencer also says that you have to draw a line. You have to draw a line in the hardware that you're going to accept for whatever graphics card and whatever processor. But if you have a PC that is 1,000 times better than that, then that game is not utilising your hardware as best as it could. Conversely, PlayStation are saying the way that we are going to design games is going to be totally different. Like the way we design levels is going to be totally different. The way we design audio is going to be completely different. The way that we get action on a screen, the amount of action that can be on screen, imagining mechanics that we can't even conceive of now because the hardware simply won't let us do them. That isn't going to be possible on current gen hardware. So if PlayStation had to continue to support the PS4 in the same way that Xbox are continuing to support the Xbox One, then those things wouldn't be possible. They're just not. I don't understand this comparison at all, because the minute you start to pick that apart, it just doesn't hold up at all.
I think you're right, yeah. I think basically this whole conversation comes down to graphics versus gaming, for want of a better phrase.
He's talking about fidelity.
Yeah.
He used the word fidelity several times, and it's unarguably
yeah, totally, it's true, yeah.
But is that what we're going to be expecting on the Xbox Series X? Are we going to be looking at a series of incredibly high fidelity, beautifully stunning looking current gen games? Because if I'm an Xbox fan, I want more than that.
Yeah.
I want better than that from my new, shiny, amazing, super beastly powerful software. I don't just want it to look better than the previous games. I want games that are designed to completely utilise the new hardware that I've just bought, not just make it look as pretty as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think Xbox players have essentially told Phil Spencer this as well, because the reaction to the games showcase that they did a month or two ago was essentially, you've not shown us anything here that looks next generation. Some of those games looked visually good enough. I remember
looked really good.
Bright Memory Infinite.
Yeah, the first one.
Very first one.
Fantastic. Like, absolutely fantastic.
But that didn't look like a next-gen game. It didn't look like it was doing anything new gameplay-wise. It was using hardware in any new way to make the game feel any better. So I totally accept everything Phil Spencer says here about the fact that if you've got the best PC, you can make the game look the best. If you've got a shit PC, your game's going to look shit.
I don't think anything that Phil Spencer says here was wrong.
No.
None of it's wrong. All of it is absolutely bang on correct.
It's just the wrong argument.
Yeah, whatever's being inferred from it or being implied from it is incorrect. And the most interesting part about this for me as well is that, again, so Phil Spencer says you basically have to draw a line under what hardware that you're willing to support. And it feels like PlayStation have drawn that line with the launch of the PlayStation 5, and that is the hardware we are going to support. And it feels like Xbox have drawn that line 7 years ago at the launch of the Xbox One. And that, to me, just doesn't add up at all. That seems to me to be a very poor move. And I'm perfectly willing to admit a year from now, if I'm totally wrong and they've absolutely nailed this and everything's all singing, all dancing on the Xbox Series X, their games look fantastic and they're blowing us all away with their new games, perfectly willing to admit that I'm wrong and that Phil Spencer is some sort of genius. But as of right now, I simply don't see how that is possible. All right, so that was only one quote. So a very long quote, number 2, Lewis.
As a player, you are the centre of our strategy. Our device is not the centre of our strategy. Our game is not the centre of the strategy. We want to enable you to play the games you want to play with the friends you want to play with on any device. On TV, the Xbox console is going to be the best way to play console games. Xbox Series X is the most powerful console out there, and it will have absolutely the best versions of our console games, but that's not to exclude other people from being able to play. Sorry, I am a bit soapboxy with this one. Gaming is about entertainment and community and diversion and learning new stories and new perspectives, and I find it completely counter to what gaming is about to say that part of that is to lock people away from being able to experience those games, or to force someone to buy my specific device on the day that I want them to go buy it in order to partake in what gaming is about. Gaming is bigger than any one device, and that is something as an industry that we've embraced all up as we bring more and more players in. I think it's vital to the role that gaming can play on the planet.
Now, I'm just going to isolate one sentence from that.
Bet I can guess which one.
Yeah, I bet you can. Our device is not the centre of our strategy. Our games are not the centre of our strategy. Why the fuck not?
Who knows?
See if Jim Ryan had come out and said that about the PlayStation 5, I would be furious.
Yeah. Either it's a comfortable marketing lie that Phil Spencer wants you to think that you are the important thing and not the games, because he is still selling you
which is fine.
a $500
which is fine
box.
and great, and like, I really like this message in principle, but I mean,
but the games are the
real
center.
world,
Yeah.
Phil. We need the games.
Yeah.
We need the games to play on your system. And even like the kind of second part of that, which he was talking about, gaming is about entertainment and community and learning new stories and perspectives. And then that runs counter to gaming when you have exclusives and whatever, right? Again, all that's right. He's not wrong. Gaming is about entertainment and community and learning and getting new perspectives on things, and all that's true of gaming, certainly. But you've got to have the games, man.
Totally.
Like, you've got to have the games that force you to think in those ways or entertain you in those ways or to build a community around, right? That's what it's all about. And then the second part of that, like, that he doesn't want people locked away from being able to experience these games. In principle, I do agree with him. But, I mean, bringing this into the real world again, should I be expecting Halo Infinite on my PS5? Should I be expecting Halo Infinite on my Mac, even?
Yeah.
Or on Switch? I mean, somehow I fucking doubt it.
Well, that's the thing, and it's what you just said absolutely cuts to the heart of it. If he really thinks that, then Xbox exclusives will be available everywhere. In all likelihood, where they'll be available is on Xbox and on Windows. So, it just doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny, that idea. And to go back to the games itself, think about Outer Worlds 2. We've just seen Outer Worlds being ported to the Switch. Now, that's so likely to be Obsidian's big exclusive for Xbox. If that has to be able to play on the Switch, which it currently cannot do very well, then it's going to hold that game back. There's just no way about that, right?
Yep. Do you know what the thing is that I really genuinely hope that we don't come across as if we're just shitting on Xbox because we like PlayStation, and we do like PlayStation. Like, I'm not denying that. Like, that's definitely our preference of console. Absolutely. But in my head, right, honestly, if this were totally reversed and Jim Ryan were saying all these things, I would be feeling really shitty about the PS5 right now. Like, I wouldn't be feeling good about it at all. Even if it were the most powerful console or whatever. If I don't have great games to play on it, or if I have games that feel as if they're just really nice versions of the previous gen, then that's not making me feel great about buying a console.
No.
And right now, I am more willing to buy an Xbox now than I ever have been in my life. And it's largely because of Game Pass and, well, the fact that I have slightly more disposable income now than I have in the rest of my entire life. But at some point, they are going to have to sell me this console. They are going to have to give me a good reason to go out and buy it. And right now, they seem to be doing everything but that and making it incredibly easy to stay on the current hardware as well. This has kind of got to the point now, I was saying to you off air, is that this has got to the point from being quite an interesting strategy to something that feels a bit daft, really. And I don't really know now what the message is, to be honest with you. I don't know why, if all of these things that he's saying is true, why someone will go and buy an Xbox Series X. I just don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, and they've got to answer that question in about a week's time. They've got this game showcase coming up, and it would worry me as an Xbox fan for Phil Spencer to be saying this as close to that showcase where they really have to sell consoles, basically, to be making a statement which is confusing, seems a bit retrograde in certain senses. I find it really interesting as well that you, for months now, have been saying on air and off air that the moves that Xbox makes are player focused and they're really good, and really great, interesting,
really great. Still are. These are still gamer focused moves, sort of. I suppose,
in theory, at least. But in the last month, basically, I've seen your attitude towards it just change inch by inch by inch, and now I feel like, I mean, maybe I was a bit closer to that to begin with anyway. But this showcase on the 23rd, it has to do something for you as well now. Like, you as someone who may have bought a console, not someone who's definitely going to, but you were on the fence. You might well have bought an Xbox, like you just said. You're closer than ever.
Yeah.
They have to nail that now. They have to nail it.
I mean, to be honest with you, mate, for me and for a lot of people listening to this podcast who are tuned into what's happening with Xbox and what they're saying and what their messaging is, and who are on the fence maybe, who were considering getting an Xbox Series X, I really think that presentation is now hugely, hugely, hugely important. Alright then, and news item number 4. Sony have invested $250 million in Epic Games, which I would say is quite interesting indeed. This obviously comes after Epic chose to demo the new Unreal Engine 5 on a PS5 rather than some high-end PC, for instance. It is also worth pointing out that Epic can and undoubtedly will still release games across all platforms. This is in no way any sort of exclusivity deal or anything like that. Nothing like that at all. It is also worth pointing out that Sony are by no means the only investors in Epic Games who seem to be trying to generate capital for business reasons, out with my understanding, I'm sure. Tencent and Disney and a whole slew of other people have also invested in them, so it's not just PlayStation either. What this does show, however, is that there is a real relationship there, and a seemingly growing relationship. And while I personally think that it is extremely unlikely that we see exclusives or anything like that, e.g. Epic making exclusive games for the PS5 or PS5 exclusives being also exclusive on the Epic Games Store, could we maybe see timed exclusives? That's what I'm thinking.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I find it hard to imagine that Epic are going to make a hell of a lot of new games that aren't just kind of Fortnite expansions in the short term, at least. But yeah, the other way around.
The Unreal Tournament.
Come on. Yeah, that would be amazing, yeah, God. But the other way around, given that PlayStation are starting to look at releasing their exclusives on, so far, Steam, you can see why they would end up on the Epic Games Store for for that same reason. Yeah,
certainly. I mean, if there's two competing companies there and you've invested in one of them,
yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Where's it going to go first? Yeah. That's basically what I'm thinking. Or it could also just materialise itself as perhaps in-game content or something like that.
Totally.
Special in-game content for PlayStation, which actually I think they already have for Fortnite and other games and whatever, or maybe certain Unreal Engine games get, I don't know, something special on the PS5, but I don't think that it's necessarily indicative of anything massive coming to PlayStation. No. But what I do think it is perhaps indicative of is a lot of the PlayStation stuff going to the Epic Games Store and not Steam. So maybe not a big deal for us console boys, but if you're in the PC space, then it might be a reason to take a look at the Epic Games Store.
Absolutely, yeah. There's also the potential that it signifies that Sony will be making more use of Unreal Engine in its first-party exclusive games, because they've built their own engines for certain games.
They have built their own engines a lot of the time. Yeah.
And there's the more broad thing of it being Sony that's invested, and Sony obviously owns music companies and all sorts, so there could be a lot there about integration into Fortnite with their broader kind of business.
Yeah, they're certainly trying to make Fortnite now a platform.
Yeah, and a performance space and all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what was the concert?
There was Travis Scott.
That was it, yeah. And I mean, Sony Records are one of the biggest record companies in the world, so yeah, that could get pretty interesting if anyone's playing Fortnite. Alright, finishing off as we always do with a couple of shout outs. First of all, Ghost of Tsushima reviews are in, currently sitting at an 84 on Metacritic. Don't be a slave to that Metacritic. However, the reviews are generally positive from what I can tell. A lot of people seem to like the kind of cinematic design of it all. A lot of people seem to like the combat as well. The criticism seems to be a lot about the fact that it is an open world game, essentially. And to quote Mr. Lewis Camley, it seems a lot more like AC Japan than it does seem like Red Dead Redemption or Breath of the Wild, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, the game comes out in a couple of days. I'm still really excited for it, definitely.
Alright, shout out number 2. Deadly Premonitions 2 also came out this week. Now, the first game was definitely a cult classic. Again, I don't think that we've got many cult classics in video games, but that is definitely one of them. And it was very polarising back then. However, this game has scored a very low 58 on Metacritic. Don't be a slave to that Metacritic, but again, when things are scored that low by that many critics, it is something to take note of. Basically, it seems to be because of performance issues. It's not really anything to do with the story. It's not really anything to do with the mechanics. It's to do with really bad performance issues and really bad frame rates specifically, which make the game genuinely difficult to play, which is pretty disappointing because I know a lot of people were into this and were looking forward to it. And see, to be honest with you, if that kind of stuff doesn't really bother you so much, then maybe just look into it anyway, because from what I can tell, it was made for fans, basically, Shout out number 3. Death Stranding came out on PC this week, Lewis. It's currently sitting at an 85 on PC on Metacritic, which is actually slightly higher than it scored on PS4, which got an 82. To be honest, there's not really much to say about this, is there? If you were going to play Death Stranding, you know what Death Stranding is by now. I definitely would have thought. What I will say, though, is that any footage or any screenshots or anything that I've saw from PC, the game looks absolutely remarkable. It looks absolutely stunning. If you've got a really high-end PC and you want to show it off, might be a game for you, really, because it does look very, very, very good indeed. Alright, shout out number 4. Google Stadia have announced 16 new games, 5 of which are exclusive. And this happened just as I was finishing the show notes, and it really, really annoyed me that I had to add this in. However, the main thing that they showed off for me, which I thought was really cool, was their click-to-play links, which is basically just a hyperlink that you click on like any other hyperlink, and it takes you like instantly into a game of Google Stadia, which was one of the coolest features, I thought anyway, of Google Stadia when they first showed it off. However, to me, it is absolutely crazy that it has taken this long to actually be released. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, Lewis, on to the games. First up was Super Bomberman R Online, coming to Stadia in August 2020. Next up was Dead by Daylight, coming in September 2020. Then there was the Elder Scrolls Online Stone Throne. Now, Elder Scrolls Online is already on Stadia, so this is to do with Stone Throne, whatever that is, I presume some update, which is coming on August the 24th, and also there will be crossplay and cross-progression with PC and Switch, which is cool. Next up was Serious Sam 4 again, coming August 2020. Then after that was Hello Neighbour, which is coming the 20th of September 2020. And new game, it seems, or expansionless or something?
I think it's a prequel, basically.
Oh, it's a prequel, okay. So Hello Neighbour Hide and Seek, which is coming in Holidays 2020. Then after that was indie game One Hand Clapping, which is out on early access right now. Then after that was Outriders, which is coming in Christmas 2020. That's a next-gen game, so that will be there at launch. After that, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, one of the best games of last year. It will be available on Stadia in August 2020. Then after that, Hitman and Hitman 2. This is the rebooted Hitman and Hitman 2. Coming September 1st. And Hitman 3 is coming in January 2021, which again is the release of that game. Then Outcasters. This is a, quotes, only on Stadia game from Splash Damage, which is coming in fall 2020, which is a sort of cutesy top-down shooter where you can kind of bend your bullets and bounce them off things and whatever. Didn't really do much for me, if I'm totally honest with you. And for Stadia owners, like, I really doubt that this is the kind of exclusive that they're looking for. After that was Orcs Must Die 3, which again is an only on Stadia game. We knew about this one, we'd seen this before. Again, honestly, the same statement applies. It didn't really do much for me, and I highly doubt it's the type of exclusives that Stadia owners are looking for. They also mentioned that Harmonix of Rock Band, Uppercut Games of City of Brass, and Supermassive Games of Until Dawn are making only on Stadia games. However, there were no details at all of this, not even a logo, and no names, just nothing. In fact, the only logos that they showed was the studio logos.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to highlight though that a lot of the games that were shown, if not all of them, the ones that were called, Stadia exclusives only on Stadia, are actually just timed exclusives, and so a lot of these games are actually going to be on other platforms anyway. So not a great showing from Stadia yet again, I've got to say.
No, is this just too little too late at this point? Like, for me, I can't see anything there that's saying I must get Stadia.
No, not at all, no. I mean, there's a bunch of good old... I mean, Sekiro is an interesting one because frame rate and stuff matters there. But
absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, if you want it, you probably already got it,
Yeah, exactly, which is true of so many of these games. I mean, I was trying to highlight some of them. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these games are old games, basically, again. Do you know what I mean? It's just quite disappointing to see, I mean, I really thought that they would have got on top of this by now. I mean, we're rapidly approaching a year of Stadia and they've basically done nothing, And this was supposed to be a big thing. Google were entering the game space, what I mean? It was supposed to be a bit of a revolution and just nothing at all. Nothing at all. All right, Lewis, I think it's time for a beer and then we'll be back with Topic of the Week. And we are back with Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is our Last of Us Part 2 spoiler cast, as promised last week. So we're going to be primarily talking about the story here. This is going to be rammed full of spoilers, absolutely rammed full of spoilers. You really shouldn't be listening to this, in my opinion, and in Lewis's opinion, unless you have played the game. You know how there's always this thing online, this online question of like, if you could wipe your memory of one game so that you could experience it for the first time again.
Yeah.
This is that game for me now, because there is only one experiencing of that for the first time. You can't not know what you know now, kind of thing. So I would very much recommend that if you haven't played the game, that you don't listen, or you go and play the game and then do listen. And also there will be spoilers as well for The Last of Us 1 as well, because it's almost impossible to talk about The Last of Us 2 without talking about The Last of Us 1. So that would be our recommendations. We are going to be talking about this under the assumption that you have played the game. So yeah, let's crack on.
Yeah. So obviously we've been talking about this game for the last few weeks on the show, but having to be extremely cagey about spoilers. And so that effectively has meant, Mark, that there is more or less half to 2/3 of this game that we have just not been able to speak about.
Yeah, most of the interesting things about this game I've not been able to speak
about.
Exactly,
and certainly everything that we saw of the game in advance was taken from that first third as well. So no one had seen anything until they hit it. And that, exactly as you just said there, Mark, there's parts about this game that once you know them, there's no taking that back.
Exactly.
And it's so important how that plays out. It's so important.
Or certainly in my mind, there's never been storytelling like that, or certainly done as well as this.
Yes, absolutely.
In a video game. It's been absolutely incredible.
So my main thing that I loved and kind of tried to talk about a little bit as we went through on our previous episodes is the structure of the game and how that story is told. And obviously,
incredible. It's so good.
The main channel by which that story unfolds is through this dual perspective that you get as the player.
Yeah. This is 100% a game that focuses on perspective, and the way that it changes so many times throughout the game is absolutely incredible. Sorry, Liz, continue.
So yeah, you've got
I'm so anxious to discuss about this game.
So you've got this dual perspective of Ellie, who we know and love from the first game and who we kind of expected that we'd be playing as.
The player is expected already to have a relationship with Ellie.
Exactly that, yeah, and a very positive one. And
and
we also know more than a lot of the in-game characters know that she is immune and is very possibly the cure for everything that's going on in this world.
Well, we know that she is the cure, and this is the end of The Last of Us Part 1, which again, just going to spoil right up front here, which is that we find out is that Ellie is immune and a cure could be made from Ellie. However, creating that cure would involve killing Ellie. And Joel was none too pleased with this, so basically set about a massacre to save her.
Yeah.
And succeeded, and all but doomed humanity.
Yeah, as far as we know, yeah.
But then at the end of the game, it's also important to note that he then lied to Ellie about this.
Exactly.
And said that, no, there can't be a cure made from you. There's loads of people that are immune. Sorry, basically. Sorry, kids. Yeah. Let's crack on with the rest of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just pretend like nothing bad is going to come of this. And so, yeah, that's the kind of central tension going into the game. But by maybe the 4th hour or something like that, we've already hit extremely major plot beats whereby Joel, the almighty Joel from the first game, who you play for 20 odd hours as in the first game, and that, again, you build this incredible relationship with as the player, gets his fucking head stoved in, Mark.
He does, and it is very violent, very, very violent. He is killed in front of Ellie as well, which is important to note, and it is done by someone called Abby, who we actually get to play as before this as well. And so the situation around Abby is that she arrives with her group, who are called the Wolves, that you'll learn later on in the game, and that she is upset for reasons that become apparent later on, and goes off on herself to find Joel, and actually ends up getting in a bit of trouble. And who saves her but Joel and Tommy being Joel's brother. Joel and Tommy save her. They end up getting her back to her group, where Abby then subsequently turns on Joel, shoots him in the leg, and then beats him to death with a golf club. And that is done exactly as violently as you probably think it is. And also the final blow is dealt while Ellie is attempting to rescue Joel.
Yeah, well, lying on the floor screaming and crying, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being pinned to the floor. Yeah, exactly.
What was your take on that moment, Mark?
I wasn't expecting it, I've got to admit. I really wasn't expecting it. I know that a lot of people have subsequently said that they knew kind of thing, or they suspected this would happen or whatever. Like, I didn't think it at all. Like, I didn't think
I thought it was every chance he might die, but not in those circumstances. Certainly not that early on. Absolutely not that early on. Yeah, and in the particularly kind of graphic way that it all went down.
I wouldn't even say 4 hours, by the way.
Maybe not.
Way less than that, actually.
Yeah. And so, the whole game takes on that tenor right from the start, that things aren't necessarily going to be what you think that they're going to be in this game. So we have that absolutely horrendous moment where Ellie's father figure in Joel is sort of taken away from her.
Yep.
But we also know that there's a lot of tension in that relationship by this point. That's getting revealed slowly as the game progresses, as we're playing as Ellie in the Seattle chapter.
Yeah, so important to note that there, hereafter, Ellie travels to Seattle to exact revenge, basically, upon Abby and the group, and slightly less importantly, but Tommy also goes ahead.
Yeah, that's why she's there chasing Tommy to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. And she also goes with Dana, who is the girl who she kisses at the party in the trailer that everyone saw, and is her girlfriend.
Which was also really wonderfully kind of woven in as well.
Like, that was great. All that was fantastic.
The fact that they held back some of that stuff towards the end of the game as well. It was really magnificently plotted and paced, I thought. So, I want to talk about Abby, Mark. That's the kind of main thing for me.
Okay.
So, we get this moment, and that first sequence where we play as Abby before Joel's murder.
Extremely short,
but one of the most incredible sequences where we're being chased by the zombie horde. That is stunning and horrifying to play.
As a set piece, there's few done better than that, really, is there? I mean, I know that the Uncharted games, obviously Naughty Dog as well, had a lot of great set pieces in it. That was more bombastic action, though. This was much more terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
A constant sense that everything... There's a bit, particularly where a chain link fence kind of falls in on you, and they're clutching at you, and it's absolutely horrendous. Heart and mouth stuff. So you kind of get a little bit of a relationship with her there. Then you see all the things that she does to Joel and understand some parts of why this is all taking place. And that, in turn, then spurs on Ellie's revenge quest.
Yeah.
And we play much of the next section of the game as Ellie, essentially hunting down these wolves.
Yeah. This basically all takes place over 3 days in Seattle. So the next 3 days, after Ellie arrives in Seattle, you'd play as Ellie for 3 days worth of game, which is about half of the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
So during that time, I think it's on day 2 as well, you realise an important point as well in a flashback, and there are a couple of flashbacks that involve Joel, and one of them is that Ellie goes off on herself, suspecting that something wasn't right with the way that Joel took her out of the hospital, and she was still unconscious and she was in a hospital gown. Something wasn't right here. So Ellie basically goes back and finds out that Joel had lied to her and that she could have given her life to create a cure. But not only did Joel take that away from her, Joel has also killed the only person that was capable of doing it.
Yeah.
So there is no hope, you are led to believe anyway. And knowing that kind of shapes the remainder of the game, because you as the player are very much under the assumption that Ellie didn't know that. Ellie didn't know that, and that her relationship with Joel, although you said was like strained, but wasn't bad. But in actual fact, you realise that Ellie has a real panic attack moment, and her and Joel are basically done from this point, and she has a full meltdown about this. Quite rightly,
absolutely, yeah.
Like totally justified. But what we also realise is that Ellie's quote-unquote rampage, the way that Joel is killed, or the people that kill Joel, are also justified in what they do, because he has caused the massacre and doomed humanity, and by to all intents and purposes within the context of this game, it's probably killed more human beings through his actions than anyone in history. Do you know what I mean? So despite the fact that we have a very, very positive relationship with Joel, from their totally justified perspective, Joel is the worst criminal that has ever existed in human history. But also this means that Ellie's actions aren't quite as justified as you think that they are.
Totally, yeah.
Because the killing of Joel in itself was kind of a justified act within the context of the game, of course, which just changes everything about how Ellie is behaving. But then after this realisation, Ellie also tortures someone at this point as well and murders them in order to get more information, and also inadvertently kills a pregnant character in a truly fucking bleak moment as well.
Yeah, that's sort of her lowest ebb in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that is her lowest ebb as well, and she was clearly very traumatised after the after the torture as well, and after that, and it was pretty fucking horrible, as you can imagine. But then after that, Abby bursts into the room, shoots another semi-important character, Jesse, in the head, and they're all held hostage, and then suddenly, bang, we're back to Seattle day 1, and we are then playing as Abby. Now that was a long way around there, ladies and gentlemen, but we got there. So Abby is a fully playable character in this game. She has her own skill trees. She has her own style of combat as well, which is basically her bare fists, because Abby is jacked.
Yeah, some brilliant neck snappings that she does.
I must admit, there is fewer better experiences I've had in a video game than with my bare hands beating to death a stalker with Abby. I have to say, that is an incredibly satisfying experience. And you play out those 3 days again from the perspective of Abby. This time, as opposed to the perspective shift coming from that flashback and learning that Ellie has information that you didn't know as the player that she had, which then changes how you think about her actions. Then there's a literal perspective shift to Abby, where you then play as Abby for basically the next half of the game.
Yeah, so it essentially mirrors what you've gone through as Ellie. It replays those same 3 days. You understand that you're almost moving in the orbit of Ellie, partly because you've played it, obviously, but you start to pick up the hints that there's more than just the threat of the scars going on in the Abby sequences. And so,
scars as well, which we've not even mentioned. Crazy cult.
Yeah.
That's all you kind of need to know for just now.
I mean, fantastic villains. But so you start to play as Abby, and I think as the player, you understand that there is more going on in these stories. Like, there's no way that you enter that Abby section thinking Abby's just got no reason for any of this, or that it's just as simple as Joel killed the Fireflies and that's that, and she's just mad about that. So it's when we finally understand why she has killed Joel specifically, which is the fact that her father was the doctor who was supposed to create the cure from Ellie.
Which as well totally changes the moment from the first game, where you just thought he was
just some guy.
He was nothing. He was nothing. He was just an NPC in a room.
Yeah.
It barely mattered. It barely even registered that you killed him, apart from the fact that it goes to a little cutscene, and it's now quite a famous bit in the game. At that moment when I was actually playing it, I walked in there, popped that guy in the head and took Ellie. Like, honestly, I barely even thought about it, and it had such incredible consequences to this second game.
Well, exactly. And in a lot of ways, I think that's the most interesting thing about The Last of Us Part 2, is that moment and several others, there are just moments in in time where these characters and these stories come together and they reverberate through everything. So that moment, in some ways, neither Abby nor Ellie, and therefore us as the players, ever leave that hospital room in reality. That has shaped everything that happens to them after that point. And the same thing happens in the moment where Joel is killed. That moment reverberates through everything else that happens. And there's several other kind of wee points like that throughout the game where you can just see these two characters who Naughty Dog have developed in such a way that they feel like increasingly like parallels. They're two sides of a coin almost. They're two sides of what happens when revenge and anger starts to overwhelm you in your life. And that, like, I've just never seen that play out in a game before. I love, just stripping all of that away for a second, the idea of just playing as both the good guy and the villain in a game is great. I think that's a really interesting concept. But to do that in this way, where
neither is very clearly a villain.
And you know, Ellie starts the game as a good guy and becomes villain by the midway point, essentially.
From the moment that you leave as Ellie and you discover that she knows about the Fireflies and this quest for revenge and whatever, it is completely consumed her. There's nothing else. Like, she now has a fantastic relationship with Dinah and whatever, and they seem to be very much in love and what have you. Dina is also pregnant as well, although from her ex-boyfriend who she split up from not very long after her.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting relationship all that as well.
We've not even barely spoken about that as well. But we basically don't see Ellie develop, which is interesting. Like, Ellie just stays in anger, which, although we were initially felt justified in our actions when we started out and we were so that day one and we were like, yeah, all these wolves are bastards and yeah, Abby has to go down for this and the whole group and whatever. And then suddenly we're thinking, well, actually, hold on a little minute, because what we do see from Abby is her development through the characters Lev and Yara, who are both Scars, who have been kind of outcasts from the Scars and who are basically wanted.
Essentially, certainly Lev.
And they kind of grow together effectively, and these were enemies. These were people who Abby would never have considered helping. I mean, most of the time she would have shot these people in the head without even thinking, you know what I mean? And we see that Abby really grows as a character with Lev, and Ellie doesn't. And then as the story moves on, eventually Abby discovers, of course, what Ellie's done. Then we cut to that room, Jesse in the head, dead. Tommy in the head, not dead. But then there's this absolutely incredible boss fight where you fight Ellie as Abby.
Stunning.
Oh my god, that was, well, one, incredibly tense, but just so well done. So well done, Liz. I've never experienced a boss fight like that in a video game where I genuinely felt the stakes. Like, my heart was in my throat. It was unbelievable.
Particularly at that moment that you don't know how it's all going to play out, and so you don't know if killing Ellie or losing that fight, what consequence that is actually going to have. Like, will they be playable again? What is actually going to happen after that moment? You know, all the time jump stuff comes to a head in that fight, basically, and that's where the story progresses from. I thought it was incredible, the fact that she was using trip mines within that battle, like playing the way that you as the player would play that fight. It was so smart, it was so well put together. And and then the story kind of, those characters kind of bounce off each other at that moment. Both survive only by the influence of Lev, who inserts himself as this totally humane character to say, do not kill Dina, to Abby. Stops Abby slitting Dina's throat in front of Ellie.
God, that was
for revenge.
This moment as well.
Yeah, and such a powerful moment. And for someone else who's involved in this kind of gang warfare, essentially, that's going on between the wolves and the Scars, to step in at that point and say, this is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
And essentially kind of save everyone at that moment and propel the story forward again.
As well, like a very secular community as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which does not believe that anyone else, any of these people in the world, have any reason to be alive, effectively. They are all sinners, you know what I mean? And for Lev to then choose that moment, of course, to be caring of these people just was tremendous.
To be bigger than revenge, I think that's the key thing there, because that's so much of the chat around this game has been like, it's a game about how violence is bad or revenge is bad, and it's not that at all. It's about obsession.
It's such a one-dimensional take on it.
Totally is. A lot of people have said, like, it's a game about love, it's a game about hate, it's a game about obsession. Of course it's a game about violence, but that's like the minimal thing about it, really, you know?
It's about perspective. The game for me is all about perspective, because then after this, as you said, these two characters bounce off one another and again are only alive because of the grace of Abby and Lev stepping in, as you correctly said. So then we kind of hard cut to Ellie in a beautiful farmhouse living with Dina, who's then had a kid and is by all accounts seemingly living an absolutely idyllic, beautiful life. Although we do see a moment where she's clearly suffering from some PTSD.
Definitely,
due to the situation with Joel. And I mean, fair enough.
And everything else.
And everything else. But then Tommy arrives at this point, who has survived with a very fucked up head because of being shot in the head and can't walk and whatever because of his injuries in what happened in Seattle, who then basically encourages Ellie to continue to go after Abby. And Abby basically throws this entire life away with Dina, this perfect life away with Dina, to go and continue to pursue Abby, because she cannot give up on it. She cannot give up on getting revenge for Joel, or getting what in her mind is, of course, justice.
Yep.
And to do that, she has to travel to California. So again, hard cut to Abby in California, finds the Fireflies, or finds a way to get to the Fireflies who still exist, and then gets immediately captured. So when Ellie arrives and has to then find Abby in California from these group of people called the Rattlers, who are obviously a bunch of bastards, she fights her way through hundreds of people just to get to Abby, just to get revenge for something that, I mean, at that point I was kind of thinking, well, I mean, she's gone. She's gone too far at this point, do you know what I mean? So I really thought that at the end, where you do eventually find Abby, who had been strung up by these people and by all accounts would have died.
Yeah, essentially crucified.
Had Ellie not intervened, Abby would have died. Again, which is also quite interesting because of how that worked the other way around before. Ellie then helps Abby escape, but then decides, no, we have to have a big fist fight at the end, which, as you pointed out, was very Kojima-esque at the end of the game. Yeah. And both of us confirmed to each other, tried not to fight. So as Ellie, you're basically forced to fight Abby, and if you don't fight, Abby will kick the shit out of you.
And at this point, like, Abby is completely emaciated. It's quite hard to look at her.
They'd like cut all her hair. As I said before, like, Abby was like jacked. And she's like,
she was a super soldier
lost.
back then.
Absolutely. She'd lost like a lot of her muscle mass and whatever, and like her face had changed. Like, I actually went into the character model thing that you can unlock, the character model viewer, and see that version of Abby is like really quite noticeably different. Like, it's almost, as you said, it's quite hard to look at her.
Definitely.
So you set about having a fist fight, and due basically to Abby being in this broken state, effectively, Ellie wins. And I really thought that in that fist fight, like, Ellie's going to die here. Like, she's gone off the edge. Like, what she has now done to just get to someone to just kill them is madness at this stage.
And she's
you know what I mean?
threatening to kill Lev just to make Abby have the fight, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she's completely gone by this point, as far as I was concerned. And usually what happens in those situations is that character dies.
Totally,
But no, like, she actually has this incredible redeeming moment where she's holding Abby's head underwater, and then hard cut back to Joel, which is after the event of the trailer that everyone had seen, where Dina and Ellie kiss, and then someone says something very homophobic about them. Joel steps in, and Ellie is annoyed that Joel had stepped in because she can handle herself and whatever. But then they have this kind of very nice moment together afterwards where they sort of accept that they would both like to still have a relationship, or more to the point, like, Ellie admits that she still wants to have a relationship with Joel, although she will find it very, very difficult to forgive him.
It's Ellie's first step towards reconciliation. It's the first indication that that's even possible for her.
Yeah, exactly. And through, I think, maybe acknowledging what Joel's actions actually meant, and that conversation of talking about forgiveness with Joel, Ellie lets Abby go and returns to her idyllic farmhouse. Dina and the baby are gone. Everything's gone except her one room where it had like her art and music stuff and her guitar on it, which at the very beginning of the game, Joel teaches Ellie to play. But during the course of the fist fight, Abby bites two of Ellie's fingers off, so therefore she can no longer play the guitar. And in the moment, which is the final moment of the game, where Ellie tries to play the song that Joel first taught her at the very first bit of the game, and she can't because she's only got two fingers, is just, honestly, I don't know why specifically. I really don't know why, but that really got to me, and that was unbelievably moving. I mean, again, and sad.
It's
that moment.
An incredibly poignant thing, that, because that song as well, like, I think the lyrics to it are something like, if I ever were to lose you, I would lose myself, or something like that. And so it's, you know, it's perfectly encapsulated in, like, who has Ellie lost? What has Ellie lost? Her whole fucking life has been defined by all of this, essentially. And then the same thing is happening with Abby. I mean, there's that incredible moment as well where Abby sort of turns to Lev and says, "You're my people," when she starts killing wolves as well. There's this sense of, like, what is lost and what is gained through all of this. And basically at the end we realise, like, Ellie knows that her quest for revenge, her obsession with putting justice, as you called it, like getting justice for what happened to Joel, she's lost herself. She's lost everything about herself, and losing those fingers and therefore losing the ability to play that song is the final admission that she has lost Dina and Joel and everything. And
she literally everything. Literally,
and she's just got to go off into the world
alone
and start
broken,
again.
Both literally and figuratively. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say like stigmatized mental health, but obviously, like, she has PTSD from these horribly traumatic events, and she is physically broken now because she's lost two fingers. Do you know what I mean? It was a truly harrowing game. A truly harrowing game, and one of the best ever told in video games as well. Absolutely astonishing. Absolutely fucking astonishing. And Lewis, I think we're going to have to leave it there because this edit is going to take me so long.
There's still so much to say.
I know there is. It's frightening how much there is to say. And if for whatever reason you've decided to listen to all of that and hadn't played the game, for God's sake, go and do it. Just go and do it. It's really something special to experience.
It's still
for that first time.
it's still worth experiencing. Not just the story beats, but
absolutely.
If you've listened to this and hadn't played it, and a lot of it is therefore spoiled, it will still catch you off guard. The gameplay, I still think is
there's 1,000 moments we've not mentioned as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. It's honestly one of my favourite video games now.
Comfortably, yeah.
Incredible. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, it really, 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 really helps us out. And again, thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. It really, really does mean a lot. It doesn't get less important on a weekly basis. So if you haven't done it, we would really appreciate it if you would. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, it just helps us out so much. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. I'd like to remind everyone that our play-along game this month is Bastion, which I have started. And I'm very much enjoying so far. And I'm very much looking forward to talking about it. And I guess we will see everyone next week, Lewis.
Thanks.